I hope that everyone is well. We are going to Amir Hashem skip to Siman Kuf Yud Aleph, chapter 111. Now remember again in chapters 108, Siman Kuf Ches, Kuf Tes, and Kuf Yud. So the Kitzur spends a lot of time speaking about, again, the kashering of the mill, how to grind the flour, the water you're supposed to use for production of masos. So because these halachos are not as applicable to us on a regular basis, given the fact that most of us are already buying prepared masos, I want to spend our time really between now and Pesach. It's crazy to say that, but between now and Pesach, really focusing a lot more on the halachos, which are much more applicable to us. So now we come to Siman Kuf Yud Aleph 111, which is the halachos of bedika and bittul chametz, searching for chametz and nullifying chametz. So here we go. Writes the Kitzur in Sif Aleph, Balayla shelifnei erev Pesach, on the night before erev Pesach, which essentially means the night of erev Pesach, right? The night of erev Pesach. Both kinas chametz, we check for chametz. V'chayavan livdok miyad betchilas halayla, and we are obligated to go ahead and search in the beginning of the night. In other words, one should do bedikas chametz immediately after nightfall. After nightfall. Now, again, in this context, nightfall is going to be pretty much just to make, for ease of explanation, at the same time that we would end Shabbos is when you would begin b'dikas chametz. And one should not sit down to eat, nor should one begin to engage in any other type of work for a half hour before this time. Again, this is a general halacha that we find that whenever you have a mitzvah that is supposed to be done at a particular time, Chazal do not want you starting other activities in the interim out of concern that you'll get wrapped up in those other activities and neglect to perform the mitzvah. So therefore, because b'dikas chametz is supposed to be done at Tzeitzok Chavim, nightfall, already a half hour before, you shouldn't do anything. That's halacha aleph. Good. Halacha beis. Ein boltkin ela b'ner shel shai v'yechidi. Furthermore, when doing b'dikas chametz, because one has to search, in the nooks and crevices, one should use a candle. What type of candle? A wax candle with a single wick. With a single wick, v'lo kiluim b'shum davi kavuka, but not with a candle with multiple wicks like we use for Havdalah, because that's like a torch. Now, what's the logic? What's the concern with a torch? So remember again, the whole point of the candle is that one is supposed to get into the nooks and crevices. The issue is if you have a torch, one is going to be concerned going into the nooks and crevices out of concern that chas shalom one could start a fire. So therefore, you have to dafka use a candle with one wick. Again, if you don't have wax, then ultimately, again, you could use of animal fat. Now, the idea over here is wax is preferred also because of the way that it burns. But if you don't have wax, ultimately, again, you could do from something else. Now, again, also the issue with candles is, remember, candles drip. So ideally, we don't really want a candle made of animal fat, because if that drips, that obviously is going to be problematic. Okay, but that's the halacha. Halacha 3. Bodei kol ha'chadarim sheish lachosh shema yichnisu b'hem chametz. You are obligated to check every room where there is the possibility that over the course of the year you took chametz. Afilu hamartufim b'halios v'chanios abeisa eitzim. Even like a cellar, alios is an attic, chanios are shops, beisa eitzim is where you store your wood. Kol sheish lachosh shema yichnisu shem chametz tzrichen lebadko. Any place where there is a reasonable concern that over the course of the year you took chametz into that area, you have to check. You also have to check utensils. Any utensil which was used to hold or to store chametz also has to be checked. The kodim habedika yechabdu heitiv kol makomos v'yinaku osa mikol chametz l'man yeinakel alo achar kach livdok. And again, see, this is interesting. Before the bedika, I think one of the interesting things that often comes up, like in our homes, by b'dikas chametz, is this idea that, we've already cleaned for Pesach, right? In other words, it's the night before Pesach. It's the night of erev Pesach. Of course, I've cleaned my house already for Pesach. So what exactly is it that I'm doing the b'dika? So this is very important. But the essence of b'dikas chametz is really nooks and crevices, to really find the stuff that may have been overlooked in a more general, comprehensive cleaning. So it's understood already, I'm cleaning my house comprehensively beforehand, and then night before Pesach, the night of erev Pesach, I'm going to get my candle, and I'm going to get into the nooks and crannies to go ahead and try to find anything that may have been left behind. Now, this is also very important, because halacha l'maisa, what the Kitzur is also saying is you're only obligated to check places where there's a reasonable possibility that you had chametz there. In other words, let's say a person has a rule in their home, no chametz upstairs, and no one ever brings food upstairs. Okay, so technically speaking, you don't have to do bedikas chametz in that place. Bedika is only done in a place where there is a reasonable concern that there may be chametz present. Incredible. Halacha dalid. Halacha number 4. Refesh shal bakar shnosnim sham tvua lebehemus lechol. V'chein lul shal tanagom shnosnim sham tvua. Inan tzricha bedika. Ki mashe lo nischamtza klal hatvua. V'imtim salamar nischamtza. Shema achlu hakov lo shiru klum. So this is very interesting. What about like a barn where you keep cows, or for that matter, a chicken coop, where you're often putting out grain for the animals to eat. So ultimately, the Kitzur says you don't have to go ahead and do bedika here. Why? Because the grain itself is not chametz. So first of all, maybe the grain never became chametz. And even if the grain did become chametz, it's quite possible that the animals ate it and that there's nothing left anyway. Okay, so the Gemara goes on. I'm sorry, the Kitzur goes on. Avalim nasnu lo shalahem shama tvua chamutza she'in kan ela safek echad shema achlu hakol in somchin al zeh utzrichem bedika. But if halacha l'maisa, you fed the animals chametz, then under those circumstances you would have to check that area as well. So very important. So a person has animals. If he doesn't feed them chametz, then those areas do not require bedika. If he does feed them chametz, then those areas would in fact require bedika. Incredible. Halacha hey. So in any of these places where you have to check for chametz, because there's a concern that you may have brought chametz into these areas, when we say you have to check in the nooks and crannies to the best of your ability. They listen to this. You have to check your pockets. The shaltinokos, and certainly the pockets of children. Shalapamim nostin bahem chametz tzrichen bedika. So again, you have to check where, once again. And this is very important, that one is only obligated to do bedika in a place where there's a reasonable concern and possibility that you had chametz in that spot. Again, if there's no chametz there, you don't have to worry. But again, check clothing, check pockets, certainly of children. All of this requires v'inarim heitev l'machar b'shas habir. And in general, one should shake out their pockets, right? One should shake out their pockets at the time of bir chametz, which is the next day. That's right before destroying the chametz. Good. Halacha vav. Hachadarim shemochrin la'akum im hachametz kevan shein mochrin ad lamachar im kein chalalav balay lechiv bedika v'chayv lebadkam. So this is a very interesting. Actually, we'll save this halacha for tomorrow. So we'll stop over here. We got through Aleph through Hey in Siman Kuf Yud Aleph. Tremendous shkayach eschus to continue on Hilchos Pesach. We will continue tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.